Wrong snap. Oh, shit.
Ah, so close.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome guys to episode 15 of the weekly. And with me, of course, are my usual hosts. Signing off with Mr. Juan Bagnell from Park. Some gadget guy.
It's okay. We're all managing that transition.
Yeah.
If I have to answer the "Why aren't you doing videos on Pocket No anymore?" question like one more time, I'll like I don't know, I'll cry or something.
Okay. And of course, Sam, aka Black Iron _ man. How's it going, man? Still can't hear you, Sam.
No audio from Sam, but we'll get Sam fixed. Don't worry about that. He'll be joining the conversation with his jazzy, dulcet tones.
Exactly. So let us kick things off. A lot of news this week. I'm sure I missed some. So if you guys have anything extra, let me know. Uselessness. I don't know if there's one particular uselessness this week, but I'd like to get into something that I think will turn very messy pretty soon.
No, I mean, like our first story on the rundown is like the future uselessness.
Yeah, lots of messiness coming up. Facebook's dating service, which will be tied into your Facebook, not a separate app. It's something you can
opt in. Just a part of Facebook.
Yeah, just a part of Facebook. Yeah.
What do you think the Vegas odds are? What's the over under on this being something you have to opt out of? Like, how many people do you think are going to get in trouble because they don't really pay attention to their Facebook settings?
Yeah, I mean, I hope this is an opt-in. I mean, if it's sensible, please just make it an opt-in. Not an opt-out.
but as soon as they see, like, oh, well, your relationship status says that you're single or it's complicated, so here are lovely singles in your area.
I mean, Facebook is taking that true AI assistant. It reminds me of a Black Mirror episode. Season 4, I believe, where there was a dating app that basically went through 1 million computations to find out the right person. So Facebook is trying to help you do that, making your life easier.
Totally altruistically, with no motive, no design, no nothing nefarious running in the background, no way to profit off this. It's incredible that Facebook would be this giving.
Well, to me, that's not even the part that I'm concerned about, really. Actually, mine is just the messy nature. I mean, this thing could get really sloppy real quick.
Oh no, it's a guarantee that it's going to get really sloppy.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, you're back. It's a guarantee that it's going to be really sloppy because Facebook exists through the momentum of apathy, and people don't really utilize Facebook and all of the services and all the privacy settings and all of the controls because they just sort of run on the momentum of all my family and friends are on Facebook, so I have to be on Facebook too. Making a part of Facebook's algorithm and a part of Facebook's friend sorting business built on romance, built on this dating application is going to get really hairy for a lot of people out there, especially folks more accustomed, I think, to an online casual dating experience. Now it's tied into something that all of your family and friends reference. It's going to be tied into a lot of your other online behaviors. And there's no way that it's not going to get ugly for people.
Yeah, but it doesn't, a lot of these dating apps, I know, Juan, you know nothing whatsoever about this anyway.
But it's like only from like listening to other people talk about how terrible they are.
Yeah, but a lot of these apps, don't they use Facebook as almost their login anyway? So yeah. I'm just thinking these apps are going to, there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there, a lot of creators out there who are going to be pissed off.
Well, Match.com took a hit.
Yeah, that Facebook is now jumping into the arena. And you see, we've said this already several times. When you build your company in any way on someone else's platform, this is what you open yourself up to. And Facebook has done this with multiple different companies and is doing this again with dating. So just think about any app out there that you use that's a dating app right now. The login structure is normally just Facebook.
Login with Facebook.
Yeah. So now it's like, if Facebook has its own dating service, why go outside of Facebook and use a different app?
Totally. Yeah, it's also like the Amazon model too. Like you can sell your products on Amazon through like some sort of Amazon store setup. And then if you become successful in a certain area, then Amazon just sort of replicates your business model and puts you out of business. And this is the exact same thing. If you have a process, you can't you can't lock down a process. You know, you can make short videos on any platform. You don't need a whole separate app just to do short video sharing, because everyone can rip off what might be a popular process. And algorithmic matching and sorting and friend filtering, well, there's an app for that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you guys, but like again, you guys are missing the part that I'm calling messy. I'm not talking about Facebook. I'm talking about people. I'm talking about how messy it is. It's going to be. I mean, like, because all the dating apps, whether it's Tinder, whether it's like
they exist somewhere that doesn't broadcast everything.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
I knew where you were going with that.
I'm just going for the messy, man. I'm going straight up.
It's okay. Just make sure you have your undercover Facebook accounts that is not linked to friends. Just make sure you have one of those.
Do you think that there is any possibility? Do you think that there is any hope that Facebook might become a legitimate relationship sorting service as opposed to a casual hookup service? Because I don't see any part of internet culture embracing this in a way that would make it legitimately like, this is the resource I use to try and find a long-term, long-lasting relationship.
I mean,
I think it's possible.
But it's a matter of, will they actually set it up the right way, right?
If there was any company that could, I think Facebook would be the one that probably could do it. Because if you think about it, this is where your family and friends are. So you already open up to basically having, just imagine if Facebook opened up a feature that said, introduce a friend. So let's say you have a cousin that has a friend that thinks, you two would really, sync up real well. You two will have like a really great connection. That's an awesome feature. Because that's how most people meet, through introduction from family and friends. So Facebook has that little, they might have a little bit of an upper hand in the dating game if they introduce features like that. If it's not just a random, I see this person that's connected to someone else that I like, so I'm just gonna poke them on Facebook. No, it's if they make it more of a community thing where people are actually pushing that introduction. Yeah, then it could really work. It could be something that's turns into a sustainable relationships.
I mean, yeah.
Actually, instead of poking, it would be hilarious if you could add a grandmother feature. Right?
That would be awesome.
I think I've got the perfect mate for my grandchild. Yeah. And I'm gonna tell Facebook, and Facebook is gonna crunch the numbers on how compatible they are. And then that'll be the invite. So it's just like when your grandparents are trying to find like a good partner for you, and they just try and hook you up with people. Now you could be facilitated. Oh, well, Cindy's boy is just such a nice gentleman. I think he'd be perfect for you. And then she can go in and punch that into Facebook and make that like the official recommendation.
That would actually be funny, though. That would actually be funny.
That would be kind of awesome.
I'd be a lot more excited about that.
I mean, also it would be nice if, and I know they won't do this, if there's one aspect of saying introduction, right, for friends, and then there's an aspect of you looking, because people look at other friends, friends list, and you need permission to talk to that friend, especially if you're not friend. You add, and then it sends a message to say Juan. It's like, hey Juan, I would like to talk to your friend. It's
like a chaperone mode.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, is it okay?
Well, if you think about it, people would be a lot more on their best behavior if they did stuff like that.
Oh, no, but it also would save you too. Besides the best behavior, they'd be like, nah, bro, that is just not for you. Like, trust me, stay away. This is for your own good. That kind of thing. This is somebody better. That helps out. But again, that's us doing wishful thinking. If Facebook,
yeah, no, I really think that the first steps on this are going to be ugly and brutal, even for just dating apps. My brother was telling me about a friend of his who he's now in a long-term relationship, but he never deleted his profile off of one of these dating apps. but he didn't. I mean, like, he's a really smart kid, but he didn't really he just deleted the app from his phone.
Yeah.
And so someone else found his profile on this dating app while he was supposedly in this long-term relationship, and it caused this minor like 2-day friend back talking strife before anyone really approached him about it. Like, yo, dude, what's going on with your profile on Tinder? And he's like, oh no, I don't use it anymore. I'm with so-and-so. And then like it kind of blew up in his face. Now imagine that compounded by how Facebook broadcasts and tracks everything that you do on that platform. It's guaranteed to be super, super ugly.
Oh yeah,
when it first launches.
definitely. I was talking to David, the unlocker, and he's like, "Oh, this is great. I might try it out." I was like, "I am staying out of this one.
Oh,
I'm staying
yeah.
out of this messy zone." I'd rather go back to those separate dating apps, as opposed to stay in here because it's just
The potential to screw up your personal circle is high, and no one wants to mess with that.
And if you're a woman, I can't see how this isn't just an automatic dick pic service. I just don't see how you just don't get inundated.
You know what? I really didn't realize how bad it was until talking to one of the what people would call the geeks in New York, right? So fellow geeks in New York, and she gets unsolicited dick pics. I'm like, what kind of guy just? Hey, I like this girl. Hey, she's probably gonna like my dick. There you go.
It's like the most absurdly technological primate thing you could do. Well, I couldn't throw my feces at her, so here's my dick.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right? It's like, because there's no possible way that could work. Even if you're playing the numbers, and people say like, oh, you just put yourself out there and you're gonna get rejected 1,000 times, but if it works once, it worked. And you're like, well, it's a guaranteed 0 success rate. No one is looked at that dick pic and got, yes, for me, that's what I'm all about.
That's the person I want.
Yeah.
Opens up.
He took the initiative. He's ambitious. He's a go-getter.
Okay.
He's obviously going to succeed in life if he opens.
He's going to be a good provider.
That is so not true. Oh my God. Okay, let's move on. If you guys check in the, I just sent you in the chat.
Yes. Yeah. this also fits the.
So Lou sent it. Thank you, Lou. Lou sent it to me. He's like, I sent it to you already, man. It's all right. It's uselessness for the week. This is Comcast aims to combat cord cording by limiting major internet speeds increases to cable subscribers.
Yeah, I forgot about this one. I even tweeted this out, and again, we shouldn't be surprised from one of the what is it? Consistently one of the top voted companies for consumer dissatisfaction. I mixed my negatives there improperly, but
it's fine.
Yeah, like basically the company that everybody hates to hate, doing yet another thing that's scummy and evil and villainous. And should we be surprised? Because they typically don't face any competition in the areas where they pull off this kind of practice.
But wait, isn't basically this just what competition looks like? Since net neutrality apparently is anti-competitive, this is exactly what competition should look like, right?
Totally. Yeah, because I mean, like, it's all about having choice. And when you have no choice, well, then the company essentially needs to compete against itself.
Yeah. Exactly. make the people who already pay for internet service probably pay a little more to get what they want. Because, hey, your consumers are cattle, and you just keep on milking them for everything you want.
Totally. And that's good, because if you don't milk a cow, they could be in distress, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You could be really uncomfortable if you don't milk that cow. So yeah, in fact, it's terrible that other companies don't do this.
Exactly.
In fact, we should be celebrating Comcast.
Oh yeah, total competitiveness. This is alpha
total
competitiveness. They compete with everyone and themselves.
Just like World War II was total war. This is total competitiveness.
Oh my
God. This is really truly the nightmare when you remove the internet as a service, an infrastructure service, as a utility. When you take that away, this is what we're left with. We're left with people saying we have X amount of consumers, we have a limited amount of of outreach. We don't want to go out and put money out for R&D to attract new consumers. So what are we going to do? We're going to milk the consumers we already have. We're going to make the people who are already paying absurd amounts for internet service, we're going to make them pay even more to get even less. And that's
and we're already talking about people in a lot of these areas who are already underserved for more competitive internet service. So Comcast has no financial incentive to improve broadband capabilities in a lot of these areas. Now, this is exactly where I get twitchy and conservative, because I really do feel we have a problem with regulation at the city and state level. This is exactly one of those situations where if you could get to local politicians and start moving the needle on some of these state laws that prevent multiple players in an area from actually competing or setting up co-ops. You know, there are a lot of rural internet co-ops that do a great job of fulfilling service to people that major mega corporations refuse to serve. This is an area where you could actually put up, vote with your wallet if we didn't have state and city regulations that stood in the way. So it's one of those things where it's hard not to get a little soapboxy and political, but yet again, congratulations, Comcast, as if we needed yet another data point that you will always act in the most truly evil fashion you can. You always manage at least once a month to give us a headline that reinforces that idea. I mean, I'm almost impressed.
It's just the way they do it as well. Look, just think about the way they're actually doing this. They're going about it and saying, oh, if you order cable from Comcast. So if you order cable from Comcast, you get access to higher tiers of cable of internet speeds. Now, basically, if you read that the other way, it basically says we're going to basically stifle every other internet provider or internet TV provider if you to any customer who doesn't pay for our particular TV service. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's totally anti-competitive.
Yeah. And again, it totally flies in the face to me. If we're making a good faith conservative argument about the business libertarianism competition, this to me would be an extreme data point for why we need some light touch to come in there and really examine how businesses hold influence over politicians at every tier, from city government all the way up to the federal government. And that's what we should be taking a look at. Net neutrality actually won't move the needle on this to any significant degree, other than letting Comcast wipe out the actual services online through these sort of uncompetitive business practices. But they wouldn't be able to do this if you could take your money out of Comcast and put it into a competitor who isn't going to do that. Mm-hmm. Every area where you have more than one provider, you don't see the same aggressive practices in trying to halt that kind of competition, because consumers have the ability to take their money away. If you're in a Google Fiber neighborhood, the other entrenched ISPs are not playing this game the same way.
No, that's very true. I mean, but we're not surprised about any of these announcements by Comcast. So.
No, it's yet another. This entire year in terms of politics in tech has been not surprised, still disappointed. Gonna keep throwing that, like I need like a giant rubber stamp. Not surprised, still disappointed.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. All right, let's move on to some VR, some low-cost VR, something that Juan's very interested in. Oculus Go came out today. Not today, this week. So, which is the low-cost entry to Oculus. It's cost $199, 32 gigabytes, $249 for the 64 gigabyte version. I'm a bit bummed out in terms of it's a standalone headset. It is powered by the Snapdragon 821 processor. This is actually a much older processor out there, but it's really nice and slick. You can throw it up and use, and it's Oculus' way to get people into that entry-level headset arena. Similar also, Lenovo announced their Daydream headset, which is the Mirage, which is this bad boy here. This is powered with Daydream, and they worked in conjunction with Google. It's powered by an 835 processor, and also it's priced at $199. I believe storage is 64 gigabytes. So there are options for people there, especially in that low-cost range. They both have the 6 degrees of motion, which allows you to move around at least a certain distance, and you don't get dizzy. You can look underneath an object. You can look around an object. All that kind of stuff. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, I hadn't actually looked up the Oculus. I was trying to read up more on the Lenovo, but again, it's another step in the right direction. What I'll be curious to see is, will we continue to see this sort of bifurcation between mobile powered VR and things like I was just kind of joking, but when you said low cost VR, I held up the Acer, the mixed reality headset, as that sort of another in the mid-range, inexpensive way to plug VR into a computer. Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of curious to see is, right now we still have these little islands of Oculus versus Microsoft versus Vive versus Gear versus Daydream. And it's a little hard, I think, for consumers to get a toehold on where they want to go. Even $200 isn't an extravagant purchase, but it's not an impulse buy. You are thinking, what am I going to use this for? How am I going to use it? And will it grow with me for a while? And that's, I think, just enough rational thought to kind of give some consumers who would otherwise run right in and get something cool, to give them just enough pause to maybe not pull the trigger on something just yet. But then we play the wait and see game. And just like, you know, every other technology that's withered on the vine, we have to worry, will we see enough people embracing the space to really move the needle on next gen VR?
Sam, any thoughts?
I'm still getting used to the whole idea of VR. You know, I'm not a big fan of anything you have to place over your head, any accessory you need to basically either play games or watch TV or whatever. But I would say just a few, I think it's 2 weeks now since I've had the Oculus Rift. I have enjoyed it immensely. It's very good. So I would think that lowering the cost of entry to people is a good idea. Would force people to make games that have better graphics, would force people to make games that are more interactive, will force people to think differently about how they make games. But right now, just the options out there, I don't know really what differentiates all of these. Like, is it pixel density? Is it resolution? What is exactly, you know, separates a an Oculus Go from a Lenovo Mirage from a Oculus Rift, from a HTC Vive, from a HTC Vive 2? What is the selling feature? What is the differentiator between all of these? And right now, I don't think it's really clear for a lot of people. You know.
Well, I think between the easiest differentiator is that, you know, between the top tier and the lower tier, of course, is power. PC connected power gives you better resolution, graphics, and also more freedom.
That frame rate.
Yeah, and freedom of movement. I made a mistake. I am not sure if the Oculus Go has 6 degrees of movement. I know the Mirage does, because that is something. So when I talked to the Lenovo and Google guys, they talked about how they were trying, their idea with this, especially, you know, powered by Daydream, is to make it as quick as possible to get into VR. So setup time, the title was 10 minutes. It took me maybe about 8 or so. All you have to do is sign into Wi-Fi, and there are already games on there, or you can sign into your Google Play account and then download some more games and, you know, stuff like that. The thing I would say is that the 6 degree of motion really works. There was one game I played, which is just snowball. You're throwing snowballs at kids. And
it's right up your alley.
Yeah. What's cool about it is that once, you know, a kid will throw a snowball, you could actually just do this. You can sidestep like that with your headset. And, you know, especially when you're thinking about headsets like this, which are not tethered to your PC and don't have sensors all around, because they use the 2 cameras in the front, just like the mixed reality headsets, to give you positional analysis as well. So those kind of things are what they're talking about. They also talked about watching movies on there. And he said, you know, and people have talked about that. You know, you can watch a 100-inch screen on there. So I fired up, you know, my favorite movie, Man of Steel, which I have on Google Play. And
one is like, you just called that your favorite movie. You just messed with him, didn't you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I had to.
Yeah.
But it was cool to actually fire it up and you can see like the 100-inch screen right in front of you, which is good. So those kind of things I think are some of the differentiators. Just a matter of these companies telling and expressing those differentiators. And then there's also that one aft section that, you know, Lenovo has with the Star Wars lightsaber, like on its own. That has nothing to do with the said VR experience. That's more of an AR experience, but also that's tied to your phone.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Lenovo, I think, is the only company, correct me if I'm wrong, they're pushing an AR solution. They're pushing their VR all-in-one solution, and they also came out with a mixed reality headset.
Yep, they have all 3 solutions available for you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like they're trying to cover all bases. Again, it is one of the disappointments, though, where you hear about like a really cool VR game and then you go and pick it up and it's like platform exclusives. Oh, well, it's not going to play on this hardware. And you're like, well, damn, that's like something I really wanted to try. I keep impressing people by having them spend a couple minutes playing around with Superhot. Superhot VR has been one of the best. Like,
game.
It's so much fun, and it's barely more than like a tech demo of what you can do with VR, and yet it's like the most immediate, easiest to translate. This is what you can feel like when you're playing this game, but it also just doesn't really have the staying power, I think, to convince other people to jump on board, and we need to see that that expanse. So, like, if I could be playing more of the what is it, Spurios, like God, what's the name of the game? They're all into like almost fitness VR. That they run you so hard in their games. They're going to be the developers that are going to make the Creed VR game.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like your punches, like the speed and strength of your punches actually transfers to your character. So how hard you punch in real life is how hard your character is going to punch in the game, kind of a thing. It's like when you see stuff like that, that's awesome. But then I try and, you know, like, that's not going to play on my Acer. You know, that they haven't made their games available for that platform.
Sam, if you get a chance, download Eve Valkyrie and play that.
Oh, okay.
That to me, that was the one game that when I got the Oculus Rift, that really sold it. Now it can get expensive because to truly enjoy the game, if you get the flight rig with it, it is unbelievable. It literally, you feel like you're in whether it's a TIE fighter, an X-Wing, whatever ship you want to imagine yourself in, because the first thing you notice is, I guarantee you fall for this, is they shoot you out of the launcher, you're in this huge battle zone, and then this massive spaceship just comes by you, and you can see the large letterings that says UNS, and you're like, okay, this is a big world. And that's the kind of game that got me hooked. And I said, okay, yes, I like this, but I haven't seen this kind of games anymore. That was the only game that's that massive. Everything else has been like super short VR, little more than tech demos per se that are great, but
Robo Recall is pretty good.
Robo Recall?
Yeah, it's kind of like Super Hot. It doesn't have the movement feature, but you can break off pieces of these robots and basically beat them with it. So you can grab a robot, rip off its hands, use that hand, beat another robot to death, and then chuck the other robot at another one. It's pretty fun stuff. But yeah, no, Elite Dangerous is the same way. Like Elite Dangerous is another very immersive stuff. I think I tried that at a friend of ours' place, Ken, when we went to Chicago, and that was really cool. Like, just the whole idea that you spend half the time just looking around, like, oh my god, I can see the ships behind me, and I can see the ships in front of me, and I normally don't like space fighter games. But when you're in that environment like that, it makes it a lot easier for me to get my spatial awareness.
Trust me, with Eve Valkyrie, the coolest thing is shooting missiles. Like, you're tracking the ship and he's going off your ranking. You just go, look, fire. You're like, done. I don't need to aim. I don't need to put my cursor, because as long as my eyesight is on that guy, and then I started thinking of Battlestar Galactica and how they were doing fight scenes in space, and I was like, okay, if I flip right this way, maybe I'll be able to catch that guy. You know? So yeah, it can be a fun experience, and hopefully, at least on the lower tier, I can understand separation between Vive and Oculus in terms of giving that separation for different types of content on the high end. You want exclusives, but I think when you get down to that $200 price range, I think we should be able to get content that's immersive all around, whether it's on the Daydream, whether it's Oculus Go, whether it's on Gear VR, stuff like that. That it should be an all-around experience. So
I just think at least it's worth mentioning that we're talking about devices that could go all the way from like $199 all the way up to like close to $800-900. And at the end of the day, it's just, when you look at it, it's the experience. Like I said, the experience to me isn't that much different. Of course, you get better graphics on the headsets that are tethered to your computer, but the whole idea that you can still get a great experience on a sub $300 device, that's amazing. That's a device that's mostly being run from your phone. That is really amazing.
Well, but isn't that also one of the concerns? Is what are we seeing developers do to take advantage of some of this more impressive hardware? And it is becoming a bit of a challenge to express, you know, like you look at a Vive Pro and what it is that it brings to the table is really formidable. But we're so new into the world of VR that developers haven't really tapped that yet. So you also run the risk of someone playing with a $200 headset and going like, well, that was really great. And then getting the Vive Pro and is like, oh, well, that was a little bit better. How much does this cost?
Yeah, that is true. The Vive Pro, that I'm disappointed it wasn't wireless, especially with the talk of wireless. Although, like, I know you saw it, Sam, right?
Well, yeah, I think did the Vive say they were going to
Vive said they
do
were
a wireless adapter or something?
Yeah. They were, but I thought the Vive Pro was going to be that.
We had the Vive team on Newegg now, so it's going to be sort of a separate component. So you can have your Vive Pro experience, and then for an additional fee, then you'd be looking at some sort of wireless connector to sort of minimize that cable. But I don't know. They didn't have any word on when where, how much, anything like that.
Yeah, because to me, especially on that experience, especially with the Vive and even the Oculus Rift, is, you know, when you're given that much room and space to play, then, you know, you start noticing the wires yourself at some point. You're playing the game, you're enjoying it, and you're like, okay, I wish I could just like move fully right and not, you know, bother about yanking my cable and my head off at the same time. So
they're really good to have wireless sensors as well as you know, the wireless headset as well.
But this is also, I mean, because we've had a number of people in the chat talking about how could we make more of a holodeck collaborative or interactive experience with multiple players. And this is the arms race. Is, are we really going to have banks of PCs communicating wirelessly to headsets for multiple players to all interact in the same space? Or are you just going to wear all that stuff in the headset? You know, like HoloLens or like some of the work that Qualcomm is doing with using mobile processors, ARM-based processors to try and produce this. Now, what's actually going to move the needle on getting people to buy that gear, to use that gear, or to put it up in places where other consumers can experience it, like a laser tag style arena? Do you want people running around with backpacks? Probably not, but we've seen a few of those arcades pop up. Now, we could go to really expensive PCs wirelessly connecting to devices. Do we have the range? Do we have the connectivity? Can we work out interference issues with all of that wire, with all of that signal in the air? Or do we just want to strap a couple things to people's heads, give them one little puck controller in their hands, and let them go to town deathmatch style? And I think mobile will probably win for the vast majority of consumer experiences.
Yep.
I do agree. Yeah, the whole idea of having the mobile processor to do that, especially if it's a standalone headset, where I know that if we are playing some kind of like Call of Duty tag game, and all I have to do is just bring this headset, walk up there, and I'm good. And, you know, we're in an arena where we're all playing. I can bring my own headset, or I can pick a headset up there, and we're good to go. Plus, I'm already signed into my account, so basically, we now have that online multiplayer, you know, atmosphere.
But I think at the end of the day, it ends up being, if anyone here's like I've seen the Ready Player One kind of environment, it ends up being that. Like we don't need the holodeck, because the holodeck is really what we enter once we put that headset on, right? You put the headset on, and you can have a multiplayer environment in VR. You don't need to move to a specific location to do that. You just basically are in your location with your setup, and someone else is in their location with their setup, and you're just enjoying a shared VR experience.
Well, I mean, that's on the VR side of things, but if you're looking at maybe the VR and AR combined together, where, you know, you've seen those, I don't know if you've seen those videos where they create like certain zones, or like it's almost like a world map of like you know, different ridges and barricades and stuff like that, and you're moving, and the objects you're fighting are not real. Of course, they AR. So it's kind of like HoloLens, where stuff pops off, but you're now in that, you know, war style environment because it's created for you, and that puts your physical and your virtual in the same place. So I mean, you can mix and match. All depends on, you know, which ones consumers find the most interactive at the end of the day, right? And it could be just the pure VR experience of staying at home and going, I put my headset on, or or even it's just a pair of glasses. You know, like it's just a pair of Iron Man glasses and you're done. That's it. You know, that kind of thing.
Cool.
So I think,
and again, I seriously doubt we'll get to like hard light holograms before we just get to some kind of neural interface instead.
Yeah.
You know, like really, if you think about it, technology is every step that technology takes is towards interacting closer and closer and closer to the body, and eventually it'll just be inside the body. Like eventually, it's just going to make that shift.
Yeah. Anyway, let's shift to the LG G7 ThinQ. LG
You're welcome.
Brand new device. Did you get a chance to see the press events, Sam and?
No, I did not.
Yeah, I saw the event and I'm read up on the phone. I just haven't gotten to hold one yet. So, yeah, LG. Not like I've not been a fan of your phones or anything. Jerks.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the phone. It's notchy,
glossy.
Yep.
Yeah. You can of course hide the notch if you want to. It's something that you're allowed to do by going to.
You're allowed to do.
It's called.
I mean, just listen to how resigned and like how defeated we are. Yeah, I mean, they actually let you hide this design feature that no one seems to be really positive about.
All black. So. I can colorize it, you know, make it like that, you know, make it cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the device. Their whole thing on AI camera, you know, doing 19 different AI perceived scenes or stuff like that. Yeah. It's a really light phone. I will give this, like, in terms of build, it is light and is well built. This is a much better build than the G6 and definitely the G5, as we all know.
Oh yeah, well yeah, G5 shouldn't ever be in the context of a modern, polished, well built phone. But again, it's what I think is kind of curious is at some point I think LG should pull the plug on having two different phone lines.
So, you know, so speaking of that, though, AT&T is not carrying the G7.
Yeah,
because AT&T is getting a variant of the V called the LG V35 coming to AT&T. So the G7 will probably be carried by two carriers in the US, Verizon and T-Mobile, because we all know Sprint is now T-Mobile. So even though they haven't started yet.
No, I thought it was an interesting move. AT&T can get very persnickety when a phone doesn't do well from a manufacturer, that they'll sort of pull support for future phones unless they can get some kind of an exclusive. I think this is a big misstep for AT&T because they're going with the older phone, and in our market that just never seems to do well. You know, it would be kind of like what was that HTC that was on Sprint that was using the Qualcomm 810 because of some Sprint radio nonsense. It was the first HTC that they properly got rid of the headphone jack. Anyway, no big surprise that a phone with completely outdated specs like sold very poorly on the fourth place carrier with no advertising and no branding. I kind of feel like V35, unfortunately for AT&T, will sort of reinforce, well, LGs don't sell. And you're like, well, yeah, because you're not carrying the current LG.
True. How's it going, Warren?
That's going okay. All right.
Thank you for joining us.
But regardless, what I think is kind of interesting is watching how the G has consistently step by step approached what you do with the V, and the V has become prettier and prettier. And I really think it would be to LG's benefit to stop trying to do dual phone launches and instead make it a big little launch towards the end of the year with the iPhone. You have a big V, a little V, and you only have to worry about advertising, supporting, releasing, announcing one batch of phones. And towards the end of the year, when you've had enough time to properly work out all the kinks with a new chipset, with new features, with new software, and it should give you a bit more bandwidth to properly support your products too. I think launching this phone so late in the year is going to be a lot of pressure on their timetable if and when we get word on the V40.
No, I do agree. I also think the one, like we saw with this launch announcement, there was no price. But more importantly, there was no release dates, and
Oh,
that was
boy.
that
And
is
we only have. Hasn't this always been one of LG's major problems? We're going to tell you about the phone, and we won't tell you how much it's going to cost, and we won't tell you where it's going to go, and we won't tell you when you can get it. So then, by the time it's actually out, we've completely moved on. Like the phone market has completely moved on,
this month
and no
is-
one's waiting for it.
This month is a fast month for moving on because OnePlus is May 15th, and I believe you can buy May 16th because no, I think you can buy in the pop-up stores. There's a pop-up store in New York. There will be one in London, a few like in I think in New Delhi, a few other places. So they're doing a smaller launch, but at least people can have access to the phone at some level. And I think it's 2 weeks later that they will probably have it available on their website. So again, that's another competitor. And then we have HTC at the end of the month, who, from all rumors, is looking to launch as quick as possible as well, to say, hey, here's our phone, and then let's move on.
I really don't understand what the reasoning in releasing what is supposed to be a flagship device and not having a release date for it. I don't get that. Like, what could be the possible reason behind that?
We can't figure it out because LG keeps doing this and it keeps burning them. And you would think at some point an executive at LG would say, let's change our behavior. Let's not go to announce until we have these things answered. But they've been doing this since the G5. Just nebulous sort of, here's the phone, and oh yeah, it's going to have these cool accessories that you will probably never be able to buy, and we're not sure exactly what features are going to go to what markets, because for some reason we have to build different phones for different regions, and eventually you can put one in your hands, but by the time you can, you'll have already forgotten that we exist because a whole bunch of other devices will have actually launched in the interim. The worst was still, I think, the V20. They worked so hard to beat the iPhone announcement by a day, and then it was like 6 weeks before there was actual information on the phone's availability and price. And like that's not okay. I don't understand how they can keep looking at that pattern and not see that this is one of the big things that dooms the phone before people even get a chance to play with it.
Yeah. Warren, anything?
I mean, I think everyone said pretty much what needs to be said here when it comes to LG and how they release phones. I mean, they'll put it out. We'll get this weird preview release / thing they do, and then we'll have to wait and see if we see it come to light. And they've done this strategy now several times, and it hasn't worked for them, and they seem to continue to want to do this strategy. So I don't know. It's just kind of
Well, speaking of strategies, Charter is changing theirs, and they're entering into the wireless business market. Thank you for that segue, Warren. Charter will be launching its own mobile service, basically piggybacking on other carriers. Pricing looks to be quite interesting as well. We know Xfinity Mobile is available, but it's regional. Just your general thoughts. What do you guys think of all these, cable companies getting into the MVNO wireless markets? What do you think?
I mean, more competition is good, I guess. Well, with the Sprint merge, this is something we talked about on the Pocket Now podcast for a little while too. With Sprint and T-Mobile merging, I'll be curious to see if regulators get twitchy about the MVNO space, because those two companies represent 54% of prepaid cellular. So having more people leasing time on Sprint and T-Mobile networks, I wonder if that moves the needle on how regulators look at this as a possible block to a merger. Will they force some kind of concessions or some kind of, like having to split off certain types of businesses before the merger is approved? But ultimately, giving consumers a few more choices as to where they can get coverage is ultimately a good thing. I'll just be curious to see how traditional ISPs leverage their influence over consumer bases. Like if you start offering ridiculous, like we were talking about at the top, oh, well, if you've got your cell phone, your home phone, your TV, and your internet through us, then you get this tier of ultimate speed. But if you don't, then you're only going to get this for your home phone, and it's going to cost more for your cable TV package. It's when we start looking at cable trying to reinforce and revive the bundle market, where you have to bundle all of your services to get the best quality of service, then I think that's going to be ultimately very bad for consumers.
Warren, Sam, anything?
I'm just really surprised by the price. It's pretty cheap for the same thing that you're offering on the same network, because they're going to be using a Verizon network. So on the Verizon network, the same cost or the same feature, Verizon would charge you about $75, and Charter's saying they're going to charge you $45. That's a huge savings there. So I wonder what kind of coverage or what tier Verizon is going to put them on, because I don't see I guess it's going to be in markets where Verizon is really not a presence. But it's huge.
I think it's mostly because these models are like these models are more like a Project Fi style. So they're going to be pushing not only calls over the Verizon network, but they're going to be pushing calls and data over their Wi-Fi hotspots as well too. So with it being that way, I think that's why they can charge a little bit less, because they feel that most likely you won't be on their network, on Verizon's network as often. So there's a certain tier or a certain amount of data or usage that they're paying for that.
Plus, also, you know that this is targeted to Charter customers, and Charter isn't in every single consumer location in the U.S. So, places like Rhode Island and things like that where Charter is available, that's pretty much where the bulk of their consumers will get picking up the service. So, I think that makes sense. Speaking of something that Sam's been waiting for, red hydrogen's been pushed to August.
It's a mixed bag,
He really
right?
set you up on that, Sam. He was like, red hydrogen thing.
Because I think the phone's going to do pretty well. I'm actually kind of hopeful for this device. But to me, it's one of those things where it's been delayed, 3 times already? From Q1 to sometime in the summer to now August. So the phone is, I still believe the phone's going to come out. But now it's adding a new feature. And that's why they're delaying it. But I'm like, if you're adding new features, which is basically an additional camera module, why don't you just upgrade the damn chip? Why don't you just upgrade it to the latest that Qualcomm has to offer? Because I think that's going to be the biggest handicap to this device. But we'll see. If this, I don't know what this 4-view video capture is going to look like.
It means you can look around the objects. He's using a holographic display, the same display that's on Nintendo DS.
I don't understand how that's gonna happen. Looking around an object.
I don't care about looking around an object.
I don't know how that's gonna happen, but we'll see.
Just pick one of these. You can actually walk around the object and look at it, and not even have to. This stuff like
but that's not a $1,200 smartphone. That's not exciting. It's only exciting when a phone costs more than $1,000.
Warren knows quite well that we faced our backlash of 3D on phones. Sprint. Yeah, I'm just saying. So I don't want to deal with that anymore. I don't even care about that. Look, if they can provide a very, very, very good camera module that upgrades it, that's excellent. Whether it's front and back, fantastic. If this adds to your red experience as a red user, sure, because now you have a monitor that works with your red. That's fine. But don't mess around the display, man.
But isn't the real news that they finally figured that people take selfies, so they added a front camera module? That's what it reads like to me.
Yeah, it's true. They probably didn't have one.
They're like, oh shit, we forgot people take selfies. Yeah, front camera module. We got to add that in. But we're going to delay it and say it's because we're making the 4-view video capture awesome.
Speaking of front camera modules, as we move away from this, the HTC made its announcement for its launch of its device on the 20th.
Nobody cares.
Wow. That was said with such vitriol.
Oh, speaking of front camera modules, the rumor is that they're having a dual camera setup in the front.
Well, you all laughing because you all said the same thing in your own head. You all just did the
built
same
in.
thing.
No, actually, no. After LG's launch, I'd rather see what HTC has to offer. I mean, like, hey, LG just.
I'm about to be that
showcased
customer. I'm about to be that customer. Is it a Galaxy? Is it a Galaxy?
It's a OnePlus. How
Is
about
it
that?
a Galaxy?
It's a OnePlus.
It's not a Galaxy.
Just watch HTC change your line to the universe. Yeah, it's not a galaxy, it's a universe.
Yeah, we don't care about. We're not in the universe.
Is it a Galaxy? I'm being an average consumer.
And Samsung will say this is the quantum verse.
Quantum verse.
Exactly. But yeah, they announced.
No, but I'm just joking there.
They announced their phone. I mean, they sent out flyers for that. It showed breakdowns of the internals. Some people
they didn't really say whether they were having an event or not. They were just like, here.
It's kind of like save the date. They would like save the date first. The rumor for that device, though, is interesting. The front-facing camera is a dual camera setup with dual OIS as well, which is the first for front-facing camera, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So,
well, I mean, there have been plenty of dual front-facing cameras and plenty of OIS front-facing cameras, but never both.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the first. I was right. Did you have to repeat that? I already said it, man.
No,
like,
it was.
You said E. You were correct.
It was being specific.
Oh,
you were correct, but you were not specific about what it was that was unique and why you were correct. So I needed to explain why you were correct.
West Coast liberals, man.
Lord, they're a different kind of liberal than the East Coast liberal.
It's all about the feels.
About the feels, yeah. So, any thoughts of that?
You guys are weird.
Oh, really?
It just went quiet.
Warren, what was that about, man? That was an unprovoked attack on all of us.
Yeah.
You guys are weird, and you're being SJWs now. Way to go.
Well, when you say I'm weird, Warren, it makes me feel like
triggered.
You're not listening to me.
Trigger.
All right, well, stop making fun of people who get triggered.
I need an app that allows me in Hangouts to put the word "triggered" on anybody's head at any point in time. When they start getting mad, they start spamming the trigger button. It'd be amazing.
It'll be like an Instagram filter. And when someone starts going on a rant, just like triggered. It's like popping up all over the place.
Triggered.
Speaking of Galaxy, that Warren was talking about Galaxy about, a lot of Galaxy news or rumors. One is Samsung is definitely going with the fingerprint display under the Galaxy S10, but also it looks like it will come on the Galaxy Note 9. Now, Samsung is still deciding on which manufacturer to go with, or they might go with all three, aka Qualcomm, Synaptics, and this one other company. I just can't remember the name. So that's one thing. Another thing was also the foldable display. Now, Mr. Who's the Boss did a video on this, which he called it kind of useless because the rumor is that it's supposed to have three 3.5-inch displays, two internally, like it's basically they're copying Westworld in a sense. Two internally opening it up, and then one at the back. I don't know how this is going to function, but that is so basic. And now there are new rumors that said the Galaxy S10 will launch in January, and the foldable display.
Every year there's an announcement that the Galaxy is going to launch in January.
But because the foldable display will be showcased at MWC.
So all right,
January. That would mean that we're saying one is going to launch at MWC, the foldable display, and the other is going to launch in January. But doesn't it make sense for the other to launch in February at CES or something?
Well, CES is January, so it means Galaxy S10.
Oh yeah, January. Okay. Yeah.
So to me, this is the opposite. The foldable display will be showcased
at CES. Yeah, that makes sense.
And the Galaxy S10, which is your cash maker, will
be at MWC.
MWC with its own private events. I mean, I don't know who decided to.
Yeah, I think someone just probably read some internal memos wrong or something.
Yeah. Oh, that's slow.
Oh wow, Warren is just dark today.
Warren is just on a roll. I mean, okay. But
I mean, like, so all of these things. I mean, this is one of the things. I was actually just speaking with a gadget company PR rep who will probably not appreciate it if I name him, but isn't this one of the things that kind of sets up these expectations for tech companies in a way where we've talked a gadget to death in what we think it might be, but by the time we get a Samsung foldable display device, it's not going to resemble
our dreams,
what we've been imagining it's going to be. There are going to be compromises. It's going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be this unicorn device. And when we get it, then people are going to be disappointed based on rumors or leaks that weren't really going to ever happen for that.
Well, the foldable display is from a patent, so that's the closest thing that we have in terms of the three-sided.
I mean, like, you know, you can go and patent, you know, like a phone with a neuro interface right now. Doesn't mean you're going to have one out in February.
True, I agree.
You keep saying stuff about neural interface.
Yeah, I know. What's up?
Have you read any books recently that talk about the neural interface? Kind of like something from you know, what's it called? Locked In, a book called Locked In. Have you read that recently or something?
I'm even taking this back to like, just give me a giant big old hole and let me go Matrix style, like stab a spike in my brain or something. Like, I'm pretty much ready. Not necessarily that I want like, you know, plugs and ports and USB jacks in my face or anything, but like, I really want to see some company do something bold to move the needle on changing up the phone interface. I don't think foldable screens do that. I don't think foldable screens fix the problems we have with phones. I don't think they address the social issues that we have with phones. And I think they make devices more fragile, which is already a problem that I've got, that our phones are becoming too fragile.
Juan,
so anything else that would be more lifestyle discreet while still letting me stay plugged into my data and services would be a huge move. But every company's too nervous to make the next Google Glass mistake. So we're just going to be in a holding pattern until someone does finally make something different.
So in terms of like social issues, I don't care about that. I want my cool sci-fi looking foldable phone that I can, you know, just showcase to my friends. That's what this phone is all about. $1,500 of showcaseness.
Yeah, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed.
Well, I would say there might be a market. There might be a market for a foldable display for people who work, let's say, in construction, people who work on design. There might be an argument for it.
I agree that we could see some benefits in niche fields, but you know, you say something like, well, I think there could be a market for a foldable phone, and then you say something like construction. And that's immediately one of the first red flags I would have with a foldable device is, will it be rugged, more durable than a tablet? You know, like, will it be more durable? I mean, because I actually linked to it a little while back. There was this great like sit-down interview on a YouTube channel that focused on CAD construction and architecture and what they're doing to get HoloLens out into the field. And it's been a significant challenge because you don't have an OSHA approved face computer. So what are you wearing all these electronics on a site, you know, out in the field? You are engaging in a higher degree of risk, because what happens when there's an accident and you've got a face computer on, you've got like shards of glass in your face if there's something bad that happens. So, you know, you start talking about foldable, and I think, well, you know, just take an iPad or a Surface.
Yeah, I'm looking at it more and not in the actual, you know, going out and actually being one of the hands-on construction workers, but in the planning phases. It will be interesting to see how you incorporate something that could easily just be folded away when you're talking about being mobile, like someone, someone who does a lot of project management or planning, and just being mobile in that sense, you know, going out and unfolding a phone and looking at a full 3D mock-up of something that's about to be installed. There might be use cases like that, but for the general public, which a lot of these phones need to attract in order to be successful, I don't see it. So that's the problem, right? For a niche market, it's going to be fine. But for a general public use, it's basically useless. So,
well, and it's we're addressing for those niche markets. They don't want that. They don't want a foldable, more fragile device. That's why we're seeing them try and embrace things like AR and VR. Because why have something that's going to occupy my hands when I'm trying to, like, you know, I have to unfold it, and then how does it stay rigid, and how is it going to handle a drop or a fall or some kind of impact? And it's still not as good as my Surface or my iPad. And at the same time, I want to be able to interact with the model in real space in real time. AR. is the perfect solution for that. So they're rapidly trying to find hands-free, fully world immersive ways to interact with this data.
Well,
And
I agree
that's what
with
I want for
Jonathan Jones.
consumers.
Jonathan Jones goes, Juan, stop being sensible. It's all about the damn cool factor, man.
Well, that's the thing.
That is so true.
I don't think this moves the needle on cool factor. I think what moves the needle on cool factor would be like what Intel was doing with Vaunt. You know, like that to me is light years ahead, cool factor wise. Laser projectors that just beam information directly into the back of my eye is so much cooler than, well, look, I can watch a video with these seams cutting up my display because it can fold up. Is not cool to me. That's lame.
I am all for biomodifications or basically just body modifications that actually are effective. That would be really cool to see in the future. But until we get there, I am more for sensible.
I don't like body modifications, man. I know you guys like it. I like seeing it in sci-fi. Anything that's hackable in my body, no.
Well, we just have to get our encryption into,
it's never going to be perfect. It's never.
Oh well,
if
you get quantum computing working perfectly, it could be.
And
but it's also a terrible argument not to do it. It's like, well, you know, it's never going to be perfect. So I guess we'll just do nothing.
I don't want it. I didn't say we shouldn't do it. I said I don't. I would be.
And I'm not talking about doing it for cosmetics' sake. I'm talking about
cosmetics. I'm just saying it
for just imagine. Okay, so why I was referencing what Juan was saying.
So I can use my hands.
Johnny Mnemonic. So there's a book. If you guys get a chance, please pick up this book called Locked In. It is actually read by Will Wheaton, and I think it's written by who's the writer on this? John Scalzi. John Scalzi writes this. Literally, the whole concept is there's a huge viral attack, a huge viral disease outbreak, and then there are people who are literally locked in. They have working brains like you and me. They can think, they can feel, but they cannot connect with their bodies. So we have to figure out a way to get these people to live normal lives. And they turn out to basically install neural networks in their brain. And I think it's really fascinating when you start looking at things that we're doing now when it comes to prosthetics and connecting prosthetics to the brain. And you look at what this book is talking about, put in a neural network in the brain, and basically, instead of having a single prosthetic, a robot becomes your prosthetic. A whole body is your prosthetic, and you're moving around and you're doing these things. It becomes, it's just the whole idea of where can we get to if we focus on giving people who don't have the same ability as you or myself the ability now to go out and live their lives in just as good, if not better, a way than we do. I think it just totally opens up technology in a very different way. Just imagine if we start out with someone who can't hear, and we can now install some kind of hearing aid that has antennas into your ear canal, and all of a sudden, what does that mean later on when we're talking about cell phones? Maybe our cell phones become these little pods that we can just put on our ear, and we can take calls and not our heads to take calls, and just be total hands-free. It becomes really amazing when we start looking at things like that. I really geek out on stuff like that. But yeah, that's what I was thinking when you were talking about like neural networks. I'm like, oh damn, this is really cool if they can do it.
Look, Jonathan was right. I still need to show people cool stuff. And this
as soon as you start sporting a foldable phone and acting like that's like really hot, I'm going to mock you so ruthlessly. Oh, nice taco phone. That's
right. That is absolutely.
I can say that because it's Cinco de Mayo and my people.
Oh yes, it is Cinco de Mayo today.
Oh, I wonder if Google has anything for Cinco de Mayo, like last year. Oh wow! What shirt is that?
Because it's also Revenge of the 5th. So
can you show us the shirt again? Nice.
This shirt literally only works one day a year. So.
Well, I saw an image with someone dressed like a stormtrooper, but then he had like a sombrero. I'm like, okay, that's really melding both these days.
It's only, because again, it's like Jedi culture appropriation, so it's funny.
Yeah. That is true. Speaking of movies, MoviePass has a competitor coming to the US, or at least expanding in the US, Cinema. offers movie plans starting at $5 and without the restrictions or limited restrictions that you've had for Movie Pass. So the pricing is as follows: at $4.99 on an annual plan, moviegoers in the US, UK, and Canada, Australia get one ticket per month to any 2D traditional movie. And then for $6.99, you can get 2 tickets per month. You would like to see any additional movies in 3D or mixed, then you move to the $9.99 plan. And then for $14.99, you get 3 tickets per month, either 3D, IMAX, doesn't matter. Because Movie Plus is also taking away that 1 movie per week. It's now 4 movies.
I know. I think Movie Pass brought that. They brought that feature back.
They brought back the 1 movie a day.
Okay.
Probably because of the fact that they were getting competitors.
Okay, all right, that's it's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know that actually came back. So at least there's competition in this space. But even any of these plans, to be honest, any of these plans are still really good. Even if it's the $4.99 plan. I mean, like, if you ask yourself how many movies do you watch a year, and you're like, if you're a superhero fan, you go, it's this, or if these, I watch 10 movies. Then you're like, I'm covered. I'm good.
Yeah, it's basically like going to Costco and getting they sell like those AMC gift passes where it essentially just cuts your movie price in half. I mean, it's the same thing. You're basically just buying, you're pre-buying a half price, or in some, like in our neck of the woods, it's third price. Yeah. Quarter price, yeah. Depending on where you go to see your movies, it's a third to a quarter price ticket. So that's fine. I'll be curious to see what the sustainability of this business model is if they can't work out some kind of preferred bulk rate with movie theater owners. Because every movie theater out here is trying to create its own club system. Mm-hmm. You pay for a club fee and then you get certain perks with so many movies coming out, and it's too much. Like we actually let our ArcLight membership lapse because, well, with a kid we weren't using it enough, but they changed up the structure on how points worked, and then it's like, well, it's going to be so much more effort the way we see movies to get our free movies or our free concessions. Why even bother trying to keep track of it? It's not even worth the time to try and keep track of those points for how we're seeing movies now. So I think if they can crack the nut on getting theater owners to cooperate and make these at least break even on the ticket purchases themselves, they'll be in this weird limbo where they'll add perks, they'll take perks away until they get something that sticks.
Well, the cinema, whatever it's called, allows you to actually book your tickets ahead of time and have selected seating, which Movie Pass does not. So Movie Pass allows you to buy the ticket the day of, I think either day of or day before, if I'm not mistaken. This allows you to, pre-order your tickets and then select your seat. So it's at least as good as competition in that arena, and we'll see how it turns out.
But I'm honestly surprised that AMC hasn't done something similar.
I know, like AMC is the largest, and they can easily do this. They already have the system with the AMC points.
Yeah,
and you can actually just
Yeah, we keep giving them ideas, huh?
Yeah. No.
Well, but I mean, think about it. Let's just flip this to the early days of Netflix. When we were still getting DVDs in the mail in little red envelopes. Like, that was the thing. It's hilarious how it wasn't that long ago where this was like a hot new disruptive business.
And I remember we used to have to peddle that at Best Buy to get people to sign up on that for the subscription. So I thought sending them DVDs was stupid back then. And I thought it was dumb. I was like, we got it fast enough that we could stream some 480p across here. Like, come on now. Like,
but it got people moving, and
it got people moving. Now, what I'm
Blockbuster and renting movies was still a thing.
What I'm absolutely shocked by is Blockbuster never having done an in-store Netflix. You pay us, $19.99 a month, and if you want to watch 15 movies in one day, you can keep coming back to Blockbuster on the day and just swapping out DVDs for whatever it is you want. You want to watch an entire show, like from season 1 to season 10 all in one day, just keep coming back and just keep exchanging the DVDs. I was shocked that it didn't do one store, because they could have crushed Netflix on day one.
But the problem is Blockbuster was a bigger corporation, and to make a decision like that will probably take as long as it took for Netflix to basically just.
I also have experience in not working with Blockbuster. I worked for one of the competitors as one of my early jobs, and that is such a different product model based on how they structure video stores. That it would have been too much for them to try and do that, because in the end it's also based on limited supply, because Netflix has an unlimited supply of a warehouse to sit back to ship those DVDs over a period of time. Where in a store you don't necessarily have that, and then you also have the issue with what comes back might be damaged, might not be playable. There might be some type of issue with it.
I'm not saying there wouldn't have been challenges, and they would have definitely had to have stepped up stock and distribution, but you also had the advantage of having a ton of mini warehouses. It's the same thing like Apple stores. Support and repair for Apple products are way better in areas that have more than two or more than one Apple stores, because they use those as warehouse space for how they package and ship and fulfill consumer demand. So I'm not saying that it would have just been like you flip the switch and it would have been easy, but who would have had the infrastructure, the network, the support, the relationship with distributors to get content and to get product? Remember, Netflix was even for a while having to buy retail DVDs that Blockbuster and other video stores were trying to push them out of the business by leveraging those relationships. And instead of leveraging them to their own benefit, they were leveraging those relationships to try and halt competition. Again, if they had just shifted that perspective to how can we make a better service as opposed to how can we halt another competitor, then I think Best Buy would still be around today. And that's why I'm shocked that AMC.
Just
Best Buy's realized that is still around.
Your kid would never know what a VHS tape was.
Well, my kid doesn't. My kid doesn't understand the concept of spinning plastic discs.
Damn.
She watches movies. She has some of her favorite films. She knows they're in the TV.
None of my nieces or nephews were born when VHSs were still a thing.
Yep.
And that's only like 15 years ago.
and think about how cool that tech is. I mean, you can pull out a VHS from like 30 years ago, and it's still going to remember where you left off. So
that's very true.
Do you want to continue playback?
You also have to think about like how that was a thing, but then also how small that was a thing, depending on when you like. I remember DVDs coming out in *99, but I remember watching probably VHSs for maybe in the '90s, because that was kind of the only option at the time. But that technology had been around for a pretty long period of time before the DVD had come out.
Laserdisc.
Interesting. That doesn't exist.
I know. That was. I remember that was the rage when like our version of Best Buy in Nigeria brought Laserdisc. We're like, whoa. And you told us how hard it was. Like, you couldn't put it in the backseat of the car. You couldn't touch it. All these things. And then, like, when somebody just touched the Laserdisc, you just got pissed. You're like, you destroyed it. It's just.
Yeah, we were very literal in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just interesting. Like from VHS to DVD, and it's like I remember watching VHS, but that was realistically a small period of time before I really just switched to DVD. And then
quick question, what was the last VHS movie you guys remember watching?
The last VHS movie I remember watching, just because I watched that movie way too much, I was a big RoboCop fan. And but even though that's not the last one, the only reason I remember this is earlier, it was RoboCop. And in that copy, when did RoboCop come out? 89, I think, or something like that. My friend had dubbed Fist of the North Star on there. I had never seen that anime. And you know how you watch VHS, the credits go, it just keeps playing. And next to me, I just heard Hokuto Shinken. I was like, what is this? I was like, this is absolutely perfect. And that's how I got into this anime. Like,
wow.
I think being in America was all the damn Disney ones. Like the series of all. Remember the big plastic Disney covers.
recovered from the Disney vault.
But they made it such like it looked like a book. Everyone came out sort of like a book style.
And that big puppy plastic, it was all wrapped around the sides. Yeah.
Then you obviously had Cop and a Half, Angels in the Outfield, Rookie of the Year, and some Freedom's damn movie. And that was your set. Everyone had the same damn set.
So I think my last VHS was when I made my wife watch Evil Dead 2 for the first time. I remember this distinctly. It was it was our third year of college. So we were just talking about different movies and stuff, and they're like, you've got to watch Evil Dead. It's the best combination of like horror and comedy. So we sit down and we watch it. And literally, I want to say in my brain, it's the next day, but it was probably a week or two after is when I got my first DVD player. And one of the first DVDs my wife got me was Evil Dead 2. so that literally, I mean, just because it was such a happy memory between my wife and I sharing that movie, and then she like totally like replaced it for me because we got this DVD player. We're so high tech now. That literally killed my VHS collection in 1 week.
Collection was the big thing because I remember at my house we had a wall dedicated, not at my house, but at my grandma's.
Library.
Wall library dedicated.
And you could buy those specific tapes, so you could basically put it on the front of the VHS and write what movie it was because it gets like worn out over time.
Yeah. And then I remember it was the special thing. Like I remember the one special thing was if a kids movies, if you got a Nickelodeon one, it was always in orange. Always in orange if you got a Nickelodeon movie.
Yeah, Lou, you're right. My last set of VHSs I watched was in college. Of course, I'm dating myself a long time ago. 1999.
Didn't bring a VHS player into college.
It was all Dragon Ball Z, and we got Dragon Ball Z dubbed. We got Dragon Ball Z subtitled, and we got Dragon Ball Z with no subtitles whatsoever. To a certain point where I thought I understood Japanese because I watched at least 50 episodes of Dragon Ball Z without any subtitles, and I knew what was going on.
I understand what's going on.
I was like, yeah, because you know the credit will go like half the episode.
Yeah.
And the fight would take 3 episodes before it starts.
Yeah. And then the major bad guy shows up and Krillin dies within 2 seconds, and it's like, okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. Did you guys ever use those LP VHS tapes? Because my friend's mom lived and worked in the US while, so she would record all the Disney cartoons, the Saturday morning cartoons for us on those long LP, like long play VHS tapes.
Yeah, long play.
And then she would send it over to us like once every month, like just record everything. So that's how
that was how a lot of Nigerian movie rentals made business. A bunch of people just sent movies that they recorded off of TV from here and just sent it back home, and that was like 80% of the movies we were watching.
So you guys had It's a Wonderful Life too.
Yeah. We had all this stuff. I remember one of the last VHSs I watched because this is like a family thing. It was Sound of Music. We've had at least 2 versions of that.
Remember, it used to come in a big, thick disc.
Yeah, crazy. I think it was what was it, like Warner or whatever, like W, whatever it was, or Lion TV.
Yeah,
it was really, really, really. One of it really throws me back every time I think about Sound of Music. I don't think about Sound of Music as a DVD. I always think of it as a VHS because that's always the only way I've ever watched it was VHS.
Yeah, that's
true. VHSs.
Well, that's a good trip to memory lane, guys. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate all the.
I got to take off, guys. All
right, Warren.
I'll let you guys later.
Later. All right. But yeah, we've come to the end of the show, and again, happy Cinco de Mayo. If you're celebrating, do that safely today. Tacos, mezcal, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, do it up right, do it up safe. Make sure you've got your Uber and Lyft apps ready to go, and just this is again, it's like for St. Patrick's Day. Those of us of the flavor of that holiday typically don't hit this too hard because all the lightweights are out. All of the
man! So, I would give people one good advice. If you're going to be drinking mezcal, check out, if you can get your hands on this, check out something called chichicapa. It's a really nice mezcal.
It's so good.
It's a really tasty mezcal.
I'm gonna be keeping it simple. I've got a really nice bottle of Don Julio, and I'm just gonna toast tonight and keep it nice and simple after Lex goes to bed. So yeah, again, we don't want to hear any horror stories from our friends, our tech friends out there of bad shenanigans on Cinco de Mayo. So have fun, be safe, and do crazy silly things, but crazy silly things that won't get you killed.
Exactly. That's a great advice.
And just remember your Oobs, your Lyft.
Uber, your Lyft. Yeah, your Junos. Yeah.
Whichever ride-sharing app or friend.
Yeah.
Just have that ready.
Drink responsibly, people. Drink responsibly.
And on that note, we just want to quickly mention what we have on the channels, what we can expect next week. So Juan, why don't you kick it off?
Oh, yeah, of course. So this week on Newegg Now, this last Thursday, we had some great interviews. We talked to Intel about the new 905p Optane that's coming out, bigger storage for their new 3D Crosspoint storage tech. We talked to Corsair about some cool RGB kit. And I nerded out hard on a rep from Creative, and so hard, in fact, that they sent me home with a Creative K3 Plus. This is an insane little audio interface, which, while it's built for desktop and streaming, and it's got a soundboard and a vocoder, an auto tuner and all this crazy stuff that's karaoke style, it's also built to support phones. So you could take this out as like a field mixer for a phone to run your podcast off of mobile kit from a tablet or a phone. So absolutely insane. And of course, during the episode, it's like everything I can do to restrain just not nerding, like slobbering all over him while we're talking about Audio Kit. And speaking of Audio Kit, I did publish, it's currently in preview on Patreon, but it will be live hopefully tomorrow, as I'm waiting for YouTube to fix my demonetization again. I have a review coming out on a portable mic called the Mic Me, which is taking the same type of diaphragm that we would use in a studio grade mic, and it's putting it into this really rugged enclosure so that you can go and do field recordings or mobile podcasting or vlogging. For iOS users, there's an app where you can actually use it for your video. Unfortunately, Android users don't get that. But again, it's another step in this direction where we've got all of these really awesome mobile audio solutions that can really step up the sound part of your content creation, content production. So hopefully that'll be live on my YouTube channel tomorrow once I see if it'll be approved for monetization, because talking about microphones on YouTube is probably the most controversial thing you could do for advertisers. And then after that, I did finish up my Honor View 10 camera review. So that is also now live on Patreon. My camera and audio reviews for phones will be Patreon exclusives moving forward. So if you want to help support production on that channel, help abbreviate the timeline for getting new phones, getting new reviews out there, that's where I'm going to be building that new community. So I've got the full in-depth camera deep dive on the Honor View 10, which is pretty surprising for a phone that comes in at $500.
All right, cool. On our end, it's pretty simple. We had our spoiler review of Infinity War. If you want to check out our conversation, it was like an hour, 37 minutes. So almost half as long as the movie, or maybe slightly longer. And we also had our Westworld season 2, episode 2 review, reunion. Westworld, of course, is that show that slowly builds up to, its climax. So it'll be fun to check that out. And then we have 2 videos on the LG G7 ThinQ. One is
You're welcome.
One is our hands-on, all you need to know. Give me a breakdown of everything that's in the phone. It has a quad DAC, which is great. It also has DTX Headphone X for 3D surround sound, and that has to do if you're gaming from or anything else on your phone, and also has a boombox speaker. And so we did a test on that speaker to see how well it sounds through different scenarios and cases and things like that. So we'll have that. Next week, we will have our review of the Samsung Q9F TV. Also, we should have our review of the Sony A7 III. We should also have another PC build video for you. I can mention that we should also have something else from LG G7. Most likely, we'll only have 2 videos out of all those 4. So, couple of those we'll probably hit up on the channel. So thank you very much, guys. Appreciate joining us. I apologize, I haven't updated the podcast. If you are listening, I will update it this weekend so you'll have the last 3 episodes up there. So don't forget to like and share, subscribe to all the channels, Mr. Warren Bowman at BW1.com. Of course, find Magnell at Some Gadget Guy, and Sam, follow him on not Twitter. Yeah.
Twitter,
yes. I would say Instagram.
@BlackIron_man.
Yeah. And myself, it's Booredatwork on YouTube. So thank you very much, and always enjoy your entertainment.
Bam.